keep that. This
Great. So it's 6:31 on August the 14th. This is the Town of Barnstable Shellfish Committee. I'll call it to order. And please note that tonight's meeting is recorded and broadcast on Channel 18 and in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 20. I must inquire whether anyone is taping this meeting and to please make their presence known. Anybody taping this meeting? Great. First order of business is to approve the minutes from July 10th.
Make a motion that we accept the minutes as published for July 10th.
I'll second the motion.
Great. Move, seconded. Discussion?
Is this July 12th? Oh, I'm sorry, July.
10th.
Okay, this says June 12th. I'm looking in the wrong place. Sorry. Okay, ignore it.
Correct. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
They're approved, and I shall abstain. Next order of business is natural resources.
So from Ryan Henry, we have our monthly propagation report just to review. He is our shellfish technician. So a lot of their time is now allocated to cleaning and maintaining the oyster and quahog seed in the floating upwellers. We received the last of our oyster seed from Muscungus, a lot of which has already been put out in bags in Barnstable Harbor. Our culch bags at Barnstable Harbor and East Bay have been cut and spread out in the trays. The East Bay experimental remote set has grown extremely well, and we've had no issues with predators since there is a net over them for now. Another 73 bushels of legal and seed quahogs have been planted in various locations along the south side of town. It would be like all of our relay areas that are in open status. We've also done numerous rounds of oyster plantings as well in preparation for the fall. Our last Learn to Shellfish class was a huge success. We had an excellent turnout and a wonderful group of people who attended the class. They're going to begin planting flupsy quahogs in the next couple of weeks, so anyone who is on the volunteer distribution list, be on the lookout for that, because we always need extra hands to help out with that. One thing of note that happened today, the fiberglass for Flupsy 2 in Prince Cove failed, and the whole thing went to the bottom of the marina. So swimming happened and rescue efforts ensued, and we were able to get everything back up and out, all 8 silos. We also had an electrical issue at the same exact time. Electrical issue.
Oh.
And we have a new electrician working on that because the conditions in Flupsy 1 were going anoxic, and there were some small fish that were dead inside of the cavity tank. But we don't, it doesn't look like we had any more than like 10% death of the seed. And considering that like a good third of the entire seed purchases for the south side could have been lost just in the silo sinking, I mean the whole sinking. Not too bad, but definitely a very stressful day for Team Shellfish.
What fiberglass failed?
So on the side, like on the main cavity tank itself, there are the spaces where you screw in like the washers and the bolts that go through the fiberglass and into the dock itself.
So the hardware
and
failed.
That was what, like the fiberglass failed.
Oh, it ripped through, so the hardware is still there, and it it wore down,
yeah.
it wore through.
Yep, yeah.
And it was like, it was moving, and it wore
So they have a couple ideas. One involves physically cutting the fiberglass and creating new holes, but we're not super like fiberglass working humans. So we may end up putting wood on the inside and then drilling through that to have like, you know,
do holes.
we could, but if you're going to make it through like the fiberglass that already, it's kind of like we need to structurally stabilize the fiberglass that's failing. Because I mean, those cavity tanks have been around longer than I have.
Yeah.
So, you know, they're over 20 years old.
I just had another question about the nets over the remote set in East Bay. But you don't do nets over the remote set in Barnstable?
No, because they're like in actual culch bags and on trays.
Okay.
So this stuff is like just, you know,
On the
kind
ground?
of.
What is it, 10X net?
No, but probably.
Like the clear. Like
It's the
shellfish net?
standard, yeah, clear
Just like
nets
my
that we
only
use.
concern, I haven't gone and seen or anything, but like, I know people in Barnstable Harbor private farms have tried to like put that on top put oysters on top of that as a cheap alternative to what other people are doing, which is using like shrimp mesh, and it will grow into the mesh. So
Yeah.
just make sure that like if it's on top and they're growing up, that when it's time to remove it, they're not growing into it, and then you got to damage the the
That is
oysters. You know what I'm saying?
something we're relatively familiar with
Yeah,
when we're,
cool. You've seen
doing
it.
between like 350 and, 600 culch bags of
Yeah.
remote set oysters a year. So they're definitely
you don't
familiar.
get to 'em,
You don't
start
get to them
growing.
when you need to get to them,
Yeah,
then
like
it's
that
like, well,
10X
half of
that
them are
just goes.
This is
gone.
always a pot.
It is, yeah. So it just requires a lot of maintenance and a lot of spot checking. But I mean, it's promising considering that's one of the only places that you see like kind of live legal set wild oysters.
Yeah. And what
Just
about
see
the
how that
stuff
goes.
on Rendezvous?
So the nets at Rendezvous, some of them are going to open for Labor Day.
I noticed
Some of
they
them
were
are
really-
still smaller year class. We're at like 65% probably legal on the stuff that's going to open, which isn't quite where we'd like it to be. But that stuff was so runty when we planted it that it's like you just got to open it up and let people kind of dig it out and go through it. So
I've noticed that it's because there's I go walk around the harbor all the time and had to walk by that, and I saw that there's some silting over. And then earlier in the season, I was talking to Paul. He said he pulls his nets off of a lot of his cohogs. So I had some problems on the farm that I work on where there was siltation and fouling, and I just decided to remove those nets and roll them up and pin them down along the edge of the net. And those nets, I was out there today, I didn't have much of a day, but I went out there to look at the farm, and those are just doing fantastic. And the loss from predators is minimal. So I would just suggest to maybe boost it towards the end, for the last month, suggest maybe removing the nets, and you can keep it closed until people harvesting it, but
they may have already. I have no
yeah,
idea.
okay. Well, I'm just saying, you can realize
I don't get to go out on tides and work with them very often,
That's
so
a
the
Liz
nets may
question.
already,
The
nets
net-
may already be gone.
Now I got nets that are not covered, and the ones that aren't covered, I can tell from a small sample that those ones are going to be significantly ready sooner than the ones that I kept covered, and I had been keeping them covered in my short career the whole time, and I just learned this, so I'd like to share that information because I think that from now on I'll probably only cover them in the wintertime when the ducks are around, as long as they're not too small.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As soon as
But a quarter,
Like
about a
thumbnail
size of a quarter,
size?
the ducks
Yeah.
won't eat them.
Yeah.
After that, they're fine.
yeah.
The theory is too, if you keep the nets, it's something too much, you lose the whole
You
net.
lose everything.
It's more labor.
Yeah.
You're
It's
better
more
off
labor.
ripping the net and
Yeah.
losing a couple of predators.
Yep.
And less labor. You don't have to worry about cleaning that stuff, so,
Understood. Duly noted.
Thank you, Jake.
yeah, no problem.
Numbers for August, we're looking 2023 year-to-date to 2024 year-to-date. We are about 220 permits behind where we were at this time last year. And I think, honestly, given the amount of people that are still going out shellfishing every single tide, I'm fine with that. The budget is still quite healthy, as you can see. And with pending oyster season, I'm sure permit sales will pick up in October ahead of November, potentially even in September, because some people decided that scalloping is a fun thing to do. And
It says 23 year-to-date up top.
That's last
probably
year.
because that's,
Yep,
yeah, I just was on that square, that's all.
gotcha.
So yeah, does anyone have any questions about permit sales? Okay. I'm going to go slightly out of order for the update on dry dragging and go into the Campylobacter closure. That is still ongoing in Hyannis Harbor. So, you can see, normally, this time of year, this area is prohibited, so you don't go in there. This area is conditionally approved and is typically closed, and this area is now closed annually for mooring area closures. On July 4th, 4 people sat at a restaurant in another state together and ate oysters and got sick. And it was determined through the trace back that they were sick with something called Campylobacter jejuni, which is a naturally occurring bacteria within the Campylobacter species family. It causes most diarrhea poisoning of humans, like across the country every year is this. So there's a variety of different species, all of which can make you sick, largely due to consumption of raw or undercooked poultry. So a recall happened, the area was closed to do further investigation, and it was determined through 2 sets, to my knowledge, of DMF water quality sampling of the meats themselves in the oysters that jejuni was not present, but Campylobacter species themselves are present. I mean, it's summertime, there's lots of people, there's lots of birds, it's a naturally occurring bacteria, just like Vibrio is everywhere, Campylobacter is everywhere. The interesting thing about this closure that's now persisted for close to a month is that outside of these 4 people that got sick, over 200,000 oysters were harvested from that area and marketed that week, and nobody else has gotten ill. So what that would scream to me is cross-contamination on some other end. However, FDA put out an advisory that basically paints a very broad stroke picture of Cape Cod oysters on a whole potentially being contaminated. So like, be cautious when you buy them, be cautious if you eat them. You should probably be scared of them because FDA likes to push being terrified of eating raw shellfish in the Northeast and can no longer use Vibrio as the poster child for that because well over a decade of Vibrio control plans have resulted in many less illnesses than we had in 2013 when all of these management plans were first put into place. Moving forward, DMF does not quite yet have an action plan, unfortunately. FDA has like a 0 tolerance. You need to have 2 completely clean of all Campylobacter species tests to reopen, which is
Impossible.
I don't know if it's achievable this time of year, and is putting, I think, not only obviously the growers who are in Yarmouth who have been out of business for almost a month, but the larger oyster selling community, especially on Cape Cod, at risk. So I've been in sort of angry emails back and forth with the state, kind of, asking like, what are your next step in this? Like, why has this not been, why haven't you taken basically like more of a stand on this issue? And I have had not much response as of yet, but they did have a meeting with the cooperative extension on Tuesday and have somewhat of a plan moving forward to confront FDA with any results that are coming forth to hopefully reopen the area. Because at this point, it's kind of like that norovirus closure that we had last year. That was more than 21 days after the illnesses even occurred. And we shut down an entire harbor and had to take someone in a boat to go look for norovirus, whatever that means.
Jake?
Like Vibrio, I forgot to ask this earlier, but or maybe I didn't, I forgot the answer, but does this this bacteria, which is naturally occurring, could it have been something like a temperature abuse situation, like similar to Vibrio? Like it was in the oyster, but then the restaurant left it in the kitchen too long out of the cooler?
So the FDA did admit they were not happy with like the recall or the tracebacks. There were tagging issues at the wholesale dealer, like missing things, recording wasn't done. But it also too could be like, it was over the 4th of July, somebody could have forgot to wash their hands. Like they could have gotten sick from eating spinach that wasn't washed. Like, did anybody have chicken on their salad?
Yeah.
Like so many other things could have made them ill, but
If it was in an oyster and it wasn't from any other cross contamination though, is it something that like is in the oyster from when it's pulled and iced down and you can't prevent it, or is it something that could have like developed since it didn't come from the harvest, it came through the process of getting to where it came
yeah,
from?
I mean, temperature abuse definitely affects any of
Yeah.
those things, but when they did the meat samplings, they were testing stuff that was in floating bags, stuff that was suspended, so from the top to the
So
bottom,
there was stuff in the floating bags?
but not
A lot.
not that specific type that made those people sick. So there's Campylobacter species present because just like Vibrio, it's everywhere. And temperature abuse can obviously exponentially drive like the, pathogenicness.
Yeah, like the density of the bacteria in the animal will make you sicker, yeah.
But they didn't even detect Jejuni in any of the samples that were sent off, and that was what determined in the traceback was what made these people ill. So really, it's just like, I don't know. I'm not happy.
Sorry for the farmers in Lewis Bay.
Yeah, it's awful. I mean, a lot of them are seeking alternative employment at this time, like wholesale dealers that they've been dealing with for years are saying, like, I'm not going to have a relationship with you anymore because of this. So, like on the one end, because most of our shorefront in those areas is conditionally approved, we don't have traditional aquaculture there. So, and, all those areas are closed in the summertime anyway. So it's not like my recreational fishery or the wild fishery is at a hardship per se, but this is like in my opinion, a very dangerous precedent to get into, and I think is going to be like FDA will make a case for not allowing the Northeast to do raw shellfish harvest, and then will make us conform to like southern state rules and regulations, I think. But that's just
It's right next to the 3 bays.
me being a conspiracy theorist. So make of that what you will. But digest it also as you see fit.
Farmers listen to that. Jeez.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of questions that we've had to field from members of the general public who are like, oh, I was going to go buy oysters from X and X wholesale dealer, but I've heard that they can make you sick. Like, well, yeah, anytime you eat anything raw, it can make you sick. Like, that's something that you have to be willing to take. And a lot of people say that because, like, shellfish doesn't have the type of money that, like, big ag does behind it, that, like, milk and chicken and all those other things that you eat barely cooked, if cooked at all, are just fine. But, the reality is that so many more people get sick from eating chicken and this type of illness than anyone ever does on oysters. But this is like what has made the headlines, which is
All over the news, they're saying Cape Cod oysters.
yes, it's a very broad paintbrush stroke. So it's disappointing to say the least.
Anything else up here?
No, I think the only other thing I have is, so I had sent out before my little long weekend what I had collected in terms of information, of regulations, of how other towns manage their cohog wild fisheries. And I'm right now in like a public comment period, basically. I put it out to my department. I put it out to anyone that has a commercial permit. And I sent the document to all of the members of the Shellfish Committee as well. And I'm just still kind of trying to hone in on, outside of like the bullet points that I had, made, what does a management plan for this look like moving forward? Are we willing to entertain a fishery outside of our embayments, and should that fishery have different regulations? Most fisheries that are outside of their embayments do have different regulations for harvest of same species. And it's not something that I'm opposed to. It's just still something that's it's very much in the ether still.
Anybody in the committee want to address that or comment? Anybody from the public here for that? Okay.
I did get a couple of comments from wild harvesters who weren't able to attend this evening. And I think what I would like is just to continue to compile all of the comments from everybody. Don't be afraid to submit something to me in writing. Don't be afraid to say it out loud in a recorded meeting that I can refer back to later. If you have any really burning ideas, thoughts, concerns, issues, any of those things, please bring them to my attention. Obviously, I'm not a wild harvester, and so there is, there's the management of such, but it also should be informed by people who are actually doing it for a living. One thing that was brought to my attention was, by more than one person, was what are the opportunities potentially for hydraulic dragging in the bays? And I know it can't happen in Barnstable Harbor because it's designated as an ACEC. And looking back through what Army Corps required for even the growers to use hydraulics for pumping softshell clams was pretty staggering. So I can't see that, 40 years later flying in an ACEC, but if there's opportunity for it, in Three Bays, in Pompanesett Bay, in East Bay, I'm willing to reach out to conservation to see what their thoughts might be on it. I haven't been around long enough, even though I've been here almost 2 decades, to know where that prohibition initially came from in our regulations. I imagine it
What does it
probably, like the prohibition on hydraulics other than for pumping of softshell clams. I just know that it's always been in the regulations, and I'm not 100% sure on the history, because I think the history for that treks all the way back to when this wasn't even a committee, it was a task force, and minutes were hand typed on a typewriter, and while those pieces of paper do technically exist in the attic, you can't even read what they say anymore. They're so faded. So if anybody was around when those regulations were crafted, feel free to chime in. But I do know, I think just because of the time of age we're in now, it may require an NOI with conservation. I mean, I know it will require conservation vetting. The only reason they were okay with dry dragging was because there's no hydraulics associated with it. So I don't know what permitting pathways there are to that, but I'm willing to ask that question, basically. So,
And when you say outside of the embayment, you're talking,
out to the 1 mile mark, Nantucket Sound, or in Cape Cod Bay,
right,
which other towns do have fisheries for, and oftentimes their limits are different from what they allow to happen inside of their embayments and ponds. I have yet to find another town that even allows dry digging inside of their embayments like we have been entertaining over the past few years.
is there any way we can expand from 1 mile to 3 mile?
That's managed by the state, and those are, I think they're called cap fisheries, and those permits are, I think, closed. I don't know how you get into those fisheries, but they're not managed by the town.
I don't believe you need a cap license for shellfish.
If you could just state your name, sir.
Tom Rice-Shavy.
Thank you.
Yes, I don't believe you need a cap license for
You
shellfishing.
need a co-op dredge.
So I was told by DMF staff that after you get outside the 1 mile, it's no longer under the town's jurisdiction. So I don't know what the state requires
Because years
or
ago-
doesn't require for that.
Years ago, I was able to drag for mussels
Yeah.
inside Nantucket Sound without a cap license.
Oh, okay. Okay.
What license did you need, if any?
State license to show, to sell fish.
That's it?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so that piece of it falls outside of my direct jurisdiction, but, we do have kind of this area that, for whatever reason, we didn't establish regulations for prior to, but that it may be worthwhile to formulate regulations for moving forward.
So at this moment, we have no regulations that cover from shoreline to mile mark or 1.
No, it just is all it's your 5 bushels, and that's all, and that's what it is. So I think that could be amended to create more opportunity. I mean, honestly, I don't know when the last time any shellfish surveys were done out there, so I don't even know if there's that lucrative a fishery to be had out there, but,
Yes, being that it's such a broad area, we're talking about a tremendous amount of area, I believe a more liberal limit would be the right thing to do.
Yeah, it seems like 20 bushels, for the size of vessel and investment going into it, would make the most sense. There are a couple of towns that went upwards of 35, but most of them fall somewhere between 10 and 35. So I initially had said, 10 seems like a reasonable increase, but the more people I talk to, it seems like 20 is probably a better number to land on and start with. And then it's if the fishery's there, awesome. If it's not, the numbers will maintain themselves, unfortunately.
How do you manage that? How does the town manage a dragger that has 35 bushels on it and lands it where?
Well, we
land that?
have a
Landed in
regulation.
the town.
Well,
Commercially, we have a regulation that requires you to land in town.
Okay.
There are rare occasions in the winter where we've had somebody from Yarmouth ask to use Blish in the wintertime, and that's with the permission, of our department and also of their Shellfish Constable. And then I also have other wild harvesters that will tap into Mashpee's ramp to get into Shoestring Bay in the winter months, and that's with our permission and with the permission of Mashpee DNR. But very, or in instances where we would let people harvest from Queen Isabella Road, even though it's not technically a landing, in the winter months, or off of Baxter Neck Road in the winter before they put up a big fence.
John?
Yes, hypothetically, we find a good bed of cohogs inside state waters. What protects us from having hydraulic boats from Chatham coming in and harvesting them?
So you have to have a town of Barnstable permit to work within the waters that are within our jurisdiction.
Okay,
So I would say from the shoreline out to that mile falls under town bylaw and not state.
Okay, what happened in Cape Cod Bay with the sea clammers that came right up on the beach in Sandy Neck?
When was that?
I can, if you don't mind.
Last few winters, yes.
The reality of the situation is, at the current moment, any of us could go get a state cohog permit that has a 40 basket limit and use hydraulic pumping right off our beaches. That's the way it is. And in the surf clam boats, the same thing. In the summertime, they're limited to 20 feet. And in the wintertime, they're limited to 12 feet.
I was told 12, yeah, 12.
In the wintertime, and
Yeah.
20 feet in the summertime.
Yeah.
So, and they're allowed 200 bushels a day of surf clams. And if you have both permits, you could get 40 and 200. And there's nothing preventing any of those people from doing any of that in our town waters as of now. And I don't know if you could ever prevent that. I'm not sure, but I know that if we went out there and we're dredging, I think that would probably, deter them a little bit, maybe. I don't know.
You really think so, Jake?
Well, how many?
We are fishermen,
Oh well, so how many co-op?
There's still a couple cohog boats out at Chatham working off of Monomoy.
But those people have town Chatham permits. They don't have state permits.
Right,
And I can
but I'm
guarantee
saying
you-
our town doesn't have any laws to prohibit them from coming. They only have,
They can't come over here because they
Without
don't have
state
state permits.
you sure of that?
There's only one guy.
How come they used to be out in the middle of the sound?
They had cohog state permits.
So what would prevent them from reactivating them? and
Those
coming
permits are either gone because they weren't transferred, or there's a very limited number of it. There's only one that I know
Take
for
one.
sure.
It would only take one.
Well, I don't know what you want me to say. I mean, they are allowed to go there.
I know, I'm just saying that if the town could possibly modify its laws to prevent that from happening,
Sure.
that would be the ideal situation.
Okay. Duly noted.
Yeah. Because they decimated the clam flats off of Sandy Neck. I can't find a surf clam anymore.
Really?
Yes. And I'm out there a lot at very low tides.
You're a dredger?
No, I'm just on the beach.
Yeah, but then you can't.
Walking around.
You can't. That doesn't mean anything.
But I'm in the lowest part of water.
Nobody dredges there.
That's what they did 2 winters ago, Jake. They were right up on the beach.
I understand, but
All
just
they-
because you don't see a couple on the beach doesn't mean that they're not out there. Because I've been out there dredging. I was out there dredging this winter,
Yeah.
surf climbing. So I know where they are. Yeah, I know that they're out there.
But they're
so
not
you
on
can't say that
They're not on the flats where they used to be,
in the
Jake.
intertidal area.
Yes.
That's
We're gonna bring it back.
They're a surf clam. They're an ocean cohog.
I
They're
used to be
ocean
able
surf clam,
I used to be
you know.
able to go out there and dig
I
a
understand.
bushel
I
of.
just don't think that is,
Dig a bushel?
I don't think that has anything to do with the surf clam boats particularly. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but
So what's been noted is that there should be a regulation
Yes.
that allows for us to manage that part of the ocean, and it makes perfect sense.
I believe that.
sure.
Yeah. I think that would make sense. If we're going to start allowing people who hold permits within this town to access that area in a different way than has historically been done, then I don't see there's any reason why we shouldn't protect that just for that
Absolutely.
community. Because then at that point, it's being managed by the town, whereas right now, it's kind of not.
So come to the table, please introduce yourself and
Tim Hamill, and all I was just curious about is out to the 1 mile line, is that considered the embayment, I guess? Is that still?
No, I'm considering embayments like, anything
Inside then?
inside of, yeah, like,
Okay.
once you come inside of, Dead Neck Sampson's Island, you're in West Bay, you're in Katuitt Bay, you're in East Bay, like anything in the sound from that
I mean, is
shoreline
it
out.
as easy as just reclassifying as out to that 1 mile as an embayment, and then having it under the protections of town licensure?
So I think that, yeah, I
What I
think.
mean, like just re-identifying on how.
Yeah, I just don't think that, that's never been expressly written
Yeah.
out anywhere in regulation. But I think that would be an important part of it moving forward with
You still have
this.
to mathematically determine that 1 mile mark.
Yeah,
If you're going to enforce it
yeah.
against somebody, you have to be able to say, okay, 1 mile from
Yep.
the jetty,
Yeah,
or, okay.
yeah, there'll have to be like a defined area.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
The state has a 3-mile limit for dragging and stuff, and that's enforced by radar.
Okay.
So
so I need radar.
you don't need radar, you have a rangefinder on the beach and
Yeah.
scope somebody out.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
do that currently for duck hunting.
Of course, Jake, go ahead.
So I wanted to bring up this whole 1 mile thing because doing my research, most towns, they have a designated area to drag, which oftentimes is more than 1 mile. Now, if you don't mind, could you pull up the Shellfish interactive map by any chance? The Shellfish area interactive
pressure.
map on the town website. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe. No.
Because according to the chart that's on the town website, it's like roughly a mile, but at points where you're at Craigville Beach, it's almost 3 miles. There's like a designated line on this chart, and it's defined. You'll see. Just
Someday.
like so like in Chatham, they have defined areas that is in control of the town, but they are past 1 mile from the main cape and from Monomoy at the furthest points, and same with Orleans. Out they part of their area encompasses the target ship, and that thing's out past well past a mile from the shoreline. I'm not asking for anything other than what is on the map, but I'd just like to, since we're talking and we keep saying 1 mile, I would just like to is it a 1 mile thing like this?
Yeah.
I mean, it would have to be like a
But-
contour line.
Well, that's what you're assuming, but if you look at what the town has on their south side thing, you'll notice that it is a square. It goes down, there's a red can that comes. Click that area right there.
Huh?
Down. Just click that whole area right there. No. Down a little bit more. Yep, now zoom down.
That's just the ID code.
So,
Yeah,
if you
it's just
actually-
the growing area
if you match
designation.
this, to a chart, this right here is that little red can that's like to the west of Collier's Ledge, roughly. You know what I'm talking about? And then it goes straight across to here, this is Pompanesett. This is off of Mashpee. It goes up.
But that's
So I just
That's just what's designated as SC18 by the state. Like, that's the DMF shellfish growing area, South Coast 18, is that area.
okay. So
See?
when you click on this, it says Barnstable South Coast.
Right, which is SC18. All of that is SC18.
Well, I would consider all that town waters, judging by what the map says.
Okay, I get that.
You know what I'm saying? There's just-
Okay.
Yeah.
So then I guess if that were going to be the case, then it could be just like to an area as defined within the
Well, that area,
DMF shellfish
the reason that
growing
area
area
makes a lot of
definition,
sense.
Extends into state water?
That's not town waters.
Yeah.
right?
So,
It's a mile from the beach.
go look at what they got in Orleans and Wellfleet and Chatham. Go look at what they have. And tell me.
It's just a,
Not a distance.
No, but there's a line. Why
it's
does-
just the growing area classification by the state. It's not
what's
necessarily
with the
like,
line?
it's not necessarily indicative of like a town line, state line. It's just that whenever DMF was making up like this is going to be the south coastal zone. This is what we're determining is SC 18. And then outside of that is something else. And inside of here is something like that's SC 19. You know what I mean?
Well, I'd like to see more.
So like this is CCB 30.
So it just needs to be defined. The larger the area, the better, as far as I'm concerned, for, local permit holders.
I think that area makes a lot of sense, especially if you have AIS on your boat, because there's,
This gentleman, what's your name, sir?
Mine,
Yeah,
Joseph Buckmeyer.
so,
Into the
Microphone.
Joseph Buckmeyer.
sure, fine. But just as you pointed out, if it's state waters, then we probably don't have a leg to stand on relative to trying to control that.
would you rather have that or not?
Oh, I'd love to have it, but I'm telling you, state town water is going to be 1 mile from shore.
For
and
sure.
It's going to follow a contour
Right.
with the shore.
But how
You
do you
might have
explain the rest of
something
towns?
like the state did with the bishops, where they went, they went around to include as much as they could. When Cape Wind was in the sound, they found a little piece of sand that stuck out and that expanded. They did it at Monomoy. It's the same thing. If you find, maybe they counted the target ship as land and they went around it. and
Yeah, but
counted
if you
that.
look at the Chatham one off of Monomoy, it going deeper into the ocean, it goes out almost 2.5 miles to their furthest thing. So
We all want the same thing, is what I'm
The state's
hearing.
not going to give up.
just how to define it.
How to
it doesn't
define
have
That
be
needs to
given
be
up,
kind
it's
of
on
like
the chart.
sussed out a bit.
I'm
That's
just
not
looking.
a charter town. That's not a charter town line of the town line.
That means if you harvest shellfish in here, that's what you have to put on your.
Why
tax.
does the north side, why does it close where it closes? Why does the north side say Barnstable coastal area and then it closes right there? Like, why is the growing area, why doesn't it go to the canal?
Because
What are the growing
the
areas?
state cordons off areas,
Yeah.
so you can determine where you harvested, and they'll box off the whole coastline.
yeah.
So that doesn't mean that it's town waters, it just means that that's what the state considers for, a zone.
That growing
So
area.
would you say that
Yeah.
like the people in Orleans, Wellfleet, and Chatham are fishing under a town regulation but not in town waters?
I don't know.
I would say that, yes.
Yeah, I would say that if they're outside.
So then,
of mine.
so maybe that is state waters, but we are allowed to fish there?
I don't know.
What do you think?
I don't think so.
So but I'm looking at the chart. I'm looking at the map.
Yeah.
What would you say?
I don't know what that map is.
You guys are fishermen.
Yeah.
What would you do? You look at the map and you say.
Have you been cited for this,
Yeah.
Vic?
No, I haven't. But I'm just looking at what it says on the chart.
If it's set up on the top, if it's set up on the top, town of Barnstable, 1 mile line, or.
It says
It
coastal.
doesn't. Coastal, it doesn't say town.
What is
The town of
coastal?
Barnstable.
What is coastal? Is it 1 mile or 3 miles?
It's just the definition that Division of
Shore,
Marine
coastal,
Fisheries used
offshore.
Yeah.
I'm
when
just
they
in, like-
designated that
I'm going to
growing
bring it back to the
area.
committee,
Okay.
Jake. All right, anything else?
No, I just, welcoming any commentary, suggestions, like I said, concerns, issues as we continue to move forward with this. I think the more input, the better, honestly. I know not everyone is going to see eye to eye on everything, and that's fine. That's what that is. That's nature. And I think we should have something, at least like a baseline management plan for this winter.
Yeah.
By the time November 1 rolls around.
Okay. I'm going to move on to new business.
Okay.
Wait, excuse me.
Sure.
Can we address, nothing's been said about the dredge boats and sizes and
Yeah,
breakage and limits? and-
Yeah, so those are the types of things, like obviously I'm not a wild harvester, I don't own a boat, I have 2 kayaks and a paddleboard at home. Attention, like questions about inboard, outboard, outboard only, inboard only, like if you have a skiff, like that's long, but it has a shallow draft, should that be allowed? Should we regulate the size of the drag itself like we do with scalloping? And would that really be like the easiest way to get the bang for your buck? Neil Andres had sent me an email with a couple of suggestions. Kenny Itnemi had a couple of suggestions. I'm just sort of like taking it all in at this point. Do you have any thoughts on it?
So I don't see, I know what the question is. It's a question about whether or not there should be a size or an engine type that is used for dredging. And it's related to the fishhawk actually fishing this past winter. And personally, I don't see any reason that there should be any limitation as long as the boat can transit there just like any other boat. It's not hitting the bottom, it's not doing anything. If anything, it's probably operating more efficiently and braking less because it has the horsepower to do a consistent speed with the dredge staying digging instead of having not enough horsepower where some of the boats have, with smaller outboards, have problems because they hang up and the dredge jumps up and comes back down and digs back in again. That could be breaking more than a boat that has the horsepower to just move along at the same pace. A bigger boat doesn't mean that you harvest more. A couple of years ago, we used the 26-foot salt. And then this year, that boat was having an engine put in, so Joe used the fishhawk. Same speed, the dredge goes at the same speed no matter what, to fish properly. So it doesn't change, it's the same dredge. It doesn't change anything. If it's a bigger boat, it probably performs better than if it was smaller. I don't see the reason why there should be any limitation. If you want to put a limitation on the size of the dredge, that's different. But we're using, the dredge that I used a couple of years ago was the same dredge that Joe used on the fishhawk this year. Same speed, same exact dredge. So I can't see what the difference is.
The difference is the first year we didn't know anything about anything. We didn't know what we were doing.
So now we know more.
So now we know what we're doing. And
Now we know what we're doing.
That these bigger boats, they can't go the speed. They're going too fast. They're just breaking stuff.
The dredge, if you go too fast, the
You're
dredge.
wrong. That's an incorrect statement.
Yeah,
For you
because-
to say that I'm going too fast.
I know it is. I know it is. I have cameras on the
One at a time, please, one at a time.
Introduce yourself
Yeah.
and talk into the microphone.
No, please introduce yourself.
Joe Weinberg.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
So, finish your statement?
I have no idea where I was.
I'm sorry.
Tom Rice, Shavy?
Yeah.
There's other boats in there that just came in. First year you opened it, somebody was in there with a Carolina skiff. And, yes, name names. And he broke the heck out of it. It's a learning curve. So there is a learning curve in this, and you should all be allowed to have that time to learn how to make your vessel work best.
We had a pilot program for 3 years to learn.
We weren't all involved in it, Jake. We didn't all have, the magic
I can
boat.
tell you right now that if you can't put your boat in throttle into gear and stay still, you have too much horsepower for the dredge. If you put your boat in gear and it moves, you're just breaking clams. It's the truth. The bottom of the dredges that Joe has is made for Cape Cod Bay with much different consistency of the bottom. It's made for the ocean on Billingsgate Shoal, where the consistency of the bottom is bigger particles and clears the dredge very easily. When you just drag it, it just fills up.
So you have a question? And then Tom.
Too fast, the dredge pops out of the bottom. It skips out of the bottom and comes down. If you're dredging properly, the blade stays in the bottom and it continues to go. If the fact that and it continues to fish. If you're going too fast, it hops out of the bottom. The dredge that we used, we're going the same speed with the 25-foot boat, which is an inboard, which I don't see why a 25-foot inboard, it would make a difference whether it's inboard or outboard. I personally think it works better. We tried a lot of different ways to work the dredge the first year when we were doing it, and the dredge only works at the certain speed that you operate the dredge, so it stays digging. If it wasn't working with the fishhawk, he wouldn't be catching anything. Or it would take him all day to do the same thing that he's
It
doing.
did take him all day. It took him to drag 3 times further than it took me to get a fill it back.
Excuse me,
That's
Joe.
exactly what
What does that
happened.
have to do with anything?
Because you're dragging longer to get this
All right.
less clams. I come up.
Can I say something without
Absolutely.
being interrupted?
Yes.
Are you gonna have to tell him to be quiet?
I would hope not.
Thank you. So, I was told by the guy that built my dredge, Jay Sestaro, who has been, he dredges on the north side, he's also a welder, and he builds his dredges, and he told me, and I consider him an expert, he had numerous conversations with Jake, and he's convinced that Jake doesn't know what he's talking about. And yet Jake's here advising the committee as an expert on the subject, and you've been doing it for a few years. 4 years, so you have some experience, as we have also done. You can't tell me what's going on my boat. You're telling me how my dredge is working and that it should be going at a certain speed. Jay said my dredge should go 1.5 to 2 knots. That's what he said. So, you know what? I went back to the drawing board, I got my operation working just how it should be. It was actually shorter. Jake was convinced that I should be adding tow line.
We're moving the tow point forward.
You know what, I think I'm getting, like, the fact that I have to defend my fishing practices from some kid that's been in this for 4 years and has advised in the committee, and apparently up to this point, it seems like you buy it hook, line, and sinker. I am going to submit my comment in writing so that I don't say anything that's just way out of line. But I don't blame Jake for being Jake, but I do blame you folks for allowing him to do it.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I'd like to comment. I'd like to defend myself. This whole thing, I'm out there dredging. I'm out there bull raking. I find with Tyler Hagenstein the most ridiculous set of cohogs I have ever seen in my life. 200 pieces in a shot. 3-second. Tommy, I see Joe in North Bay, invite Joe. Joe says it's a cool to invite Tommy. No problem. We all catch these clams. Where the footprint is exactly where the town planted scallops. We're out there, I said, this is because of what happened before I was in this fishery. This is because of the scallop drag, and that the footprint of these thick clams is directly where the scallops were. Let's try to do dredging. Joe, I'm telling them out there where we're raking, ha! That'll never happen. Here we are, we did the pilot program, we tried it. First year, no complaint, can't say anything. I don't know what I'm doing. I bought the thing and did it in the Centerville River Relay, and I didn't even know what I bought, and I didn't know how to do it. And I finally figured it out to how to catch some. And then we went out there. I never said anything to anybody because it was thick and nobody knew anything. Next year, I was the only one out there. Third year, I was the only one out there. And in those years, I was the only one ever in the Centerville River for the 3 times that we did the Centerville River Relay. And I had been out there for the whole time. I bought a camera to send down to my dredge to make sure that the dredge is fishing properly. I have reduced my breakage to very little, if any. I can do a tow with basically breaking absolutely nothing if I really go really slow and try. And so I know how not to break them. When Joe came in, Joe saw me dredging in East Bay, and he was really livid about it. And he wanted to shut down the whole fishery. This was last year. He saw me dredging in East Bay in the channel while the tide was high, before I had time to go get fish on the relay clams.
You were right by us.
I was in the middle of the
Well,
channel.
we were cohogging, you were dredging. You put the dredge in the water,
Right in the middle of the
acting
channel.
like an idiot.
Right in the middle of the
Going,
channel.
flying around in circles.
Introduce yourself.
No,
Introduce yourself
Sorry.
and talk into the
Jason
mic.
French.
Talk into the mic.
So what I'm saying is, then Joe came out with the cheapest setup he could get, and after trying to shut it all down, went the other way and went to scorched earth and just decided to just do whatever he wanted to do. And I tried to, talk to him and, say, hey, the wear on the dredge is a little funky and this and that, and I'd see him drive by scooping silt and crap out of his dredge, and I can tell you that that boat is going too fast. It's not properly rigged.
In your opinion?
No, I can tell you that.
No, you could tell us in your opinion, and I appreciate
The
it.
dredge that is from Jay is for Cape Cod Bay. In the sediment, you think it's any different, but
You're entitled to your opinion.
There you go.
It's your opinion.
Sure.
Thank you.
My opinion's different than yours. Tommy's
Were
opinion's
you out
different than
this
yours.
winter?
Joe's opinion's different.
Sure.
And
you guys are all part of the same.
I just, what bothers a lot of people in this room is that because he's here at every meeting, he has the opportunity.
He's a
to-
member of the committee.
Right, I know.
Okay.
And it's a conflict of interest that he's doing what he's doing, because what he's doing is he's trying to convince everybody on the committee of something that is not true, which benefits only him, or mostly him.
No.
Because if some other boat isn't there, then it's that much more for him. The fishery should be opened up to more people, not to less.
So, if I may,
Okay.
Jake, hold on. Part of what I believe Natural Resources is doing is trying to get input as to how we can make regulations so that everybody can use this fishery.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing. Is that not true?
Yes, I'm sorry,
Yes, and
just trying to get this over because we've all been up very early this morning. Very, very early. Perhaps we should investigate what Jake says about the dredge type. Perhaps it is a dredge type that would fish better. We don't know. Perhaps town should look to regulating the dredge type rather than the boat size.
honestly, based on conversations that I've had with other harvesters and their knowledge as to all the different types of boats that are available and that are out there right now, that's more the direction that I'm leaning anyway, because I think that it will like kind of answer both ends of that question.
Dredge type?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, that's good.
Because,
Got resolved.
I mean, the other thing too is balancing it with the people who are hand digging or digging, you know, long raking by boat. I do think that it's important to establish either the same way that we do mooring area closures with the balls out or everywhere, all over everywhere this time of year. These are the areas that you're either allowed to dredge or that you're not. Like just making a defined area that retains something for people who don't have the opportunity to fish that type of gear.
I have one last point I'd like to make, please, and that is the relay areas that are accessible to hand diggers and bow rakers, I don't think should be allowed to be dredged.
Okay.
Okay.
Even in the middle of the channel?
Was that a relay area? Were they,
In the middle of the channel?
did you drop relay
All of
stuff?
our relay areas
Was
are
up on the flats.
designated, and you can see them very
Right, so
clearly
we're-
on
So
maps.
not like East Bay, but just the relay.
Talking about East Bay.
The whole East Bay?
No, the relay area.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I would never
But you
even.
did go through.
No, I didn't.
I would think.
No, I did not. No, I did
You
not.
did circles.
No,
you
I
made me.
didn't. No,
I got
I
water
didn't.
down my way.
I don't
All
want
right.
to argue.
Whoa, please.
Listen,
I appreciate the comments, and that's what they should be. They should be comments on whether or not we regulate and how we regulate this fishery. Introduce yourself, and do you have a comment about the regulation that's being proposed?
Yeah, just like, you know, with the,
Please.
just about that. Tim Hamill, and all I'm just saying is if, to Amy's point, if we, I mean, just from talks of everybody, sounds like that the river is gonna be off limits this year to dredging
Yeah,
possibly.
it's been 3 years. It should
So that'll
rest.
be, any hazard that
4
I guess
years.
could be from a larger boat, I guess, is done there. So if these areas are, if we do drop the balls and say, all right, there's 4 spots in the inner bays that everybody can dredge, I mean, that's kind of eliminating any relay areas and impacts with all of that. So, I mean,
Say that again?
to your point, I mean, I agree, you can't be poaching it. I mean, if it's dictated zones and not just said, okay, East Bay is open to dredging, East Bay is open to dredging, but you're gonna go here. I mean, there should be no impact at all with any planted fish.
Well, there
I
wouldn't
mean,
be
and the
anything like
point-
that this year anyway, because we didn't do relays this year. It's an
just
every
using-
other year thing now anyhow there.
Example, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, The whole
Yeah.
point of the whole thing at the beginning was to clean the bottom. I mean, still want to clean the bottom, right? So why don't we work
That it
areas?
did.
Yeah, I know, so let's keep going. I mean, I don't have a dredge yet. Love to get a dredge. Almost bought a dredge about in January. Didn't, because nobody knows what's going on with it yet. So it's like, it's a good tool. It's just you can't use the tool in every single facet of the fishery, you know? It needs to be somewhat monitored, you know? But That's
So Jake, you got your hand up.
Yeah, so-
Wait, hold on. Is this a comment, or do you want to respond to that
I would
statement?
like to respond to a couple of things. One, the dredge size relates to the size of the boat. So if you want to restrict the dredge size, and you take a small dredge and just drag it behind the boat, it's not going to fish properly. You understand that, right, Joe? The size of the dredge doesn't matter to the boat?
Hold on.
No, let me ask you one more point.
No,
Okay.
do not, because it's going back and forth, and that's not productive at all.
Now, one more
So I'm
thing.
gonna, I'm gonna move on.
I just want to just say, that's not what I suggested about a smaller dredge type. A smaller dredge.
Your suggestion is you'd like to have the dredge be the only thing that's, or a thing that's regulated?
Yes, and.
And you're
do
going to
some
submit
research.
those?
I will, and
Okay.
do some research on the exact type that works the best.
Perfect.
If Jake thinks this is best, that's good.
Now,
I think that's great.
So that's what we should answer this.
And everybody should submit written comments so that they can be distilled by natural resources and then brought back and discussed.
Okay.
Do you have addition, or?
Just one more comment, and not back and forth with you.
Thank you.
So the part of, one thing you got to keep in mind if you're going to regulate, and dredge is better than vessel, because people, there's not a lot of money in dredging clams, because at the small amount that you're allowed to keep with fuel costs, dockage costs, if you're keeping the boat at a dock, you have the same, we tried to get a little more. It's part of the reason I didn't fish last year with the dredging. And because all those extra expenses, it would be nice to be able to have a little more to offset that. People don't go and buy a specific boat to go dredging. They take the boat that they have, and that's the boat that they work it to do the job. So you barely justifies buying the equipment. To go buy a boat to do this, forget about it. You can't regulate the type of boat. If you want to regulate the type of dredge, and you can do something that shows, some sort of figure out how one dredge is better than another, that's one thing. But you can't tell somebody that has a tin boat that it's not big enough, or a diesel boat because it's too big, because that's the boat they have. So you fish with the boat you have.
Thank you. I'm going to move on.
one more? One more.
I've got a new voice. Name, please, and comment.
Connor Rogan. I was dredging this year, and I saw in the email that Amy sent something about including your breakage in your 5-basket limit.
Or just in in the limit, whatever the limit
Yeah.
is. There's a lot of towns that it's not just your harvestable product, it also includes your shell.
Yeah.
So if you have breakage, it's attributed to your total catch.
Yeah. If no one's breaking clams, then with
But
that.
it's also something that you'd have to witness it in order to make it enforceable, which is kind of like the pumping in 2 feet of water or 1 foot of water, depending on the time of day around the tide in those 2 hours. It's challenging, if not impossible, to enforce.
Unenforceable, and you just bring it down the amount that you could bring in.
Right.
For a dredge boat, which is just barely enough to justify being there in the first place. So until you get on something that's smaller size product, you're just cutting back the bushel limit
Yeah.
by doing that, and it's unenforceable.
Nobody wants to break
I agree.
Anything else?
That's really.
Okay. Comment?
Yeah, so I'm just curious if there's going to be a boat restriction size. The Seahawk is a 30-something feet. Tommy's got a 30-something foot boat. I'm buying a 40-something foot boat. How many 30-plus foot boats can fish in the Mills River safely?
The river's closed.
I know, but exactly. You go in the Secure River, you go into a tow in the channel in West Bay. I mean, what are we going to be doing out there? We're
Make
trying to get
friends
a
with your
20.
fellow fishermen and work together.
Why not just take the big boats and go out the cut and get 20 baskets? Is what I'm trying to do.
Well, that's a
and
good
leave
idea.
the
Yeah,
small,
that'd be great.
leave the inside for basic. This whole thing was kind of a little bit bigger of bull raking. This wasn't to get big boats in the estuaries and dredging. This was about taking what we have for bull rake boats and just not killing ourselves. And in an experimental, like Amy said, nobody does this in any other town, in any estuaries.
Maybe somebody with a tin boat thinks that your boat's too big.
Well, my boat's like the smallest boat actually doing it, so that'd be kind of funny.
I don't know about that.
I'm the smallest boat dredging.
Okay, so now we've devolved into back and forth, please. Jake?
So I just think, how many boats can we put in there?
Appreciate that. Okay, I'm going to move on.
Thank you.
Would you shut your flashlight off, please? New business.
Sorry.
So we're going to vote for chair and vice chair.
Yes, so this was at the recommendation of a town councilor and also my department. Apparently, a lot of committees do this annually.
What?
I know, yeah. And I think really, I mean, just me personally, I can't picture anybody else wanting to be chair, but it'd be lovely to vote you in, sir. And it would be nice also to have somebody who, when you can't attend, that's like our fallback to somebody rather than
You're
me
assuming that
asking
I'm going to
people
take the role.
Oh, unbelievable.
I'm going to nominate Candy.
Jesus, no.
No.
I'll do it.
There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it was just a suggestion, so that more so.
Who wants to
so
step
that
up
we
into
can
the vice
have
chair?
somebody-
Bill?
I'll do it.
Are you sure
Okay.
of what?
So we have, Jake's thrown his hat in the ring to be chairman. You're throwing your hat in to be vice chairman? Okay. You want a time to campaign, raise some money, form a PAC? What do you want to do?
Shirts.
I'll go in for vice chair.
There you go. So we got a little,
Race.
anybody else?
Just remember that 10-minute meeting last time.
Do you want to run against me for chair?
11 and a half minutes, actually.
What's that? Oh,
The
11 and a half.
last meeting that
Yeah,
DJ chaired.
all right. Anybody else? You want to put your hat in the ring for chair? Anybody?
Are you putting your hat in the ring?
No?
Oh.
After 35 years, I think it's time for me to step back.
Oh, you're not in
No?
contention?
No. Okay? So, I don't know who does the vote.
I don't either. I assumed
We're
you would
so-
know how this works.
Such novices at this.
Have you been the first and only chair?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got to be done.
Well, do we have to close this tonight, or can we kind of canvass for some other individuals who might not be present here
So
at
you're-
this
you're-
table this evening?
You want to see a campaign? You want it to go on for 30 days?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we postpone the vote for chair and vice chair, and that we publish a list of applicants for both positions, so we vote at the next meeting, so that we know what the heck we're doing.
Do we have a maximum donation size? 'Cause I might be, reconsidering this. There's been a motion made. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the can is kicked. Number 2, proposed regulation change for 40717B.
Yeah, so these are all basically the same type of regulation. So, it addresses the restriction of wild harvest on days during certain times of year that my coworkers and I all agree make no sense anymore. We have this monster of a recreational fishery in this town that has their 3 days to harvest, and they can put a hurting on some shellfish. And we have a 47 permit holder wild fishery that has very strange time of year restrictions that, I think back in the 90s made sense, but I don't think make sense anymore. So I would just like to have wild harvesting of species occur Monday through Saturday with no Wednesday and Saturday prohibitions throughout the summer months. The reality now is that the time of year restrictions are basically right when Vibrio season is happening. We're at the landings. I don't think, having 5 or 6 extra people go out to make money off the land on a Wednesday in July is going to put any more hurting on access than it already is there. So I just think, we'd like to, it's for south side regulations for soft shell clams, and then on the north side for quahogs and soft shell clams.
So basically the same thing, you're striking that.
Just making it a Monday through Saturday fishery. I'm still not interested in letting people wild harvest on Sundays. Everybody needs a day of
Just
rest.
for the winter.
No.
Just because you see.
Nobody else, no. I'm fine with no Sundays. That's good.
But in the winter time, there's like good days and bad days where we can't go during the week, and then the Sunday's a nice day where we can go, but we can't.
Yeah, this is like what I'm willing to give at this point is these time of year restrictions being lifted. I think there's one town that allows harvest 7 days a week, and it's Mashpee, and I don't think they have a booming commercial fishery.
But it's like the guys that would dredge boats, you're giving all types of stuff, but the guys that scratch, we just want Sundays for the winter months.
You want Sundays for the winter months. Not heard anybody else ask for Sundays in my 18 years here but you. So this is what I'm proposing at this point in time. It's open for discussion. I know the committee likes to look at these proposed changes ahead of time. Oh yeah, and then just removing down here, east of a line extending north from Barnstable Yacht Club, it's just, you're just not allowed to wild harvest in the recreational area. Because that is more clear, I think.
So in essence, this is the first reading of this.
This is the first reading of this, yes.
So comment made, understood. Any other comments about this proposal?
Is it possible to get a copy of it?
Yeah, I can send them out to everybody.
That would be great, and then we'll look at it next time, just because it's,
And I think it should be a vote next time.
yeah. It doesn't sound complicated, just like to read it.
Okay. And thank you for the comment on the Sunday. Anybody else have a comment about Sunday fishing?
Not Sunday in general, but yeah, Sunday. I like what Amy has proposed. I think Sunday should be off. I've seen flats get dug out too quickly with too many days open on it. We all witnessed that on one spot in particular. But yeah, otherwise, it's a good idea.
Okay. Anybody else?
Natural Resources needs a day off, right? So,
They still work that way.
We do still work that day,
I
yeah.
mean,
We're
the
7-day-a-week people.
Yeah, but you're not, this is a day you don't have to, well, theoretically. if
Deal
you're
with
out
the
there.
one thing. Aquaculture is 7 days a week.
Yeah, yeah.
Recreational harvest is on Sundays, so.
Oh, that's true.
So you're working on
Oh,
Sundays?
that's true.
Yeah.
So I'm going to move on to upcoming and proposed coastal project. This is 180 Ocean Street. Where's that? Is that Inner Harbor?
Yeah.
This is down in Barnstable, right?
Yeah.
So we can't vote that down, I take it.
It's already been,
Approved?
yeah.
So why are we talking
But
about
I'm here
that?
anyway, so let's just talk about it.
No kidding. Well said, Paul.
No, you're fine.
Thank you all. Sorry to run out.
Thank you for coming.
Jeremy Packard from Both Infrastructure and Environment. I am here on behalf of Town of Barnstable Public Works Department and Engineering Division, and we just want to do some maintenance on the Bismore bulkhead. So we initially looked at oversheeting the bulkhead, full replacement. We did additional analysis, investigations on thickness of existing steel, and we can perform maintenance activities that allows us to gain some additional service life out of the structure. Not much to see in site plan view. Everything's really on the face of the bulkhead. The project extends from the northern limit of Bismore Park, which is the parking lot just south of Spanky's, to the southern parking lot just before the Highline Ferry Terminal. Get to the water work. So this is the profile showing, sorry, I hit the mic. Showing the face of the bulkhead. We have 3 types of rehabilitation proposed. The first is recoating. So we'll blast off the existing coating from 6 inches below mean low water to the top of the sheets, bottom of the concrete cap. The splash zone gets a splash zone epoxy, which sets up quicker, doesn't have the issues with inundation from tides. And then the upper part of the sheets will be coated with a regular 2-part epoxy, standard for these type of structures. So that's the first repair, and the entire length of the bulkhead gets that repair. Second is anodes. We'll install superficial anodes approximately every third sheet belly. And that's to pick up the stray currents in the water and slow the rate of corrosion of the sheets over time. Those are installed at mid-tide between the lower Milo water line and the mud line, right? So somewhere in between there, they blast off some of the existing coating. They weld the brackets and install the anodes to the sheets, and then they recoat the area that they had to blast to do the welding. So anodes installed all the way down. As part of the cathodic protection process, they will also place a weld between each sheet right at the bottom of the cap, just to provide that continuous electrical connection. So that's the second repair. The third is steel plating. We have some sections of the sheet that have exhibited, I'm not going to say severe, but enough section loss that patching essentially is required. Right, so there's a total of, it's like a $1.1 million construction budget. The idea is to do as much patching as we possibly can within the budget. So going back to the site plan view, this commercial, the southern parking lot area here, this section is used for commercial fishing, offloading. That's where we see the highest loads on the bulkhead. So what we're going to do is start at the southern end of the bulkhead and have the contractor go up and down each sheet and take ultrasonic thickness readings, UT readings, determine the existing thickness, and we will determine in real time where those patches are needed, and we'll essentially start at the south and patch as far as we can until we run out of money. So those are the 3 maintenance items proposed. We have no contact with the mud line whatsoever. Majority work will be performed from a barge, from a dive barge. There's a little bit of topside work just for staging and stuff like that. They'll work that topside area in like 50-foot increments, so the whole harbor walk isn't closed down at one time. And I think that's all I got. The coating will be removed with a needle gun with a vacuum attachment, right? So it collects the debris as it's removed from the bulkhead. We have to submit the rig actually used for that to Conservation Commission. We're looking for a 90% efficiency rate. Otherwise, they'll require a siltation boom be in place while the work is being performed. This hearing was closed. This hearing was closed last Tuesday with the Conservation Commission. Order conditions is pending. We're here just to make sure you guys are all right with it.
Where's your staging area?
It'll be done primarily from the barge, and then they'll have small sections along the top of the harbor walk. Just like I said, like 50-foot closure areas where they'll reroute pedestrian traffic.
Do these anodes have to be replaced periodically?
Over time, yes.
Yeah. Are they above?
The idea, you want them to be replaced, right? 'Cause
Right,
the idea is that
understand that,
okay,
sure.
right.
Okay.
What's the lifespan?
It depends. I mean, we think we can get 15, 20 years out of it, right? And we consider doing having brackets where you could remove the anodes and then replace those. But in practice, nobody actually maintains these, right? So the brackets themselves get so corroded that by the time you actually go to replace, you've got to replace the whole thing anyway. So.
I know from like owning a boat that stays in the water a lot of time that I have to replace the zincs twice a year, and they're pretty bad. So.
Well, you must have electrical problems.
I'm in North Bay. Yeah, it's how it is. And anyways, so like who the town's gonna like put a diver in there twice a year or once a year?
You get 15, 20 years. These are big.
Out of one anode?
Yes.
How big is it?
They're these ones are shown. I mean, they're 3 feet long.
Oh, good heavens!
Yeah.
I don't have the size shown.
it's more
Well,
than
like, can you
half
show
a
me
minute.
your hand roughly or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, they're like this, they're like blocks,
Yeah.
you know,
And they're
aluminum
zinc?
blocks. No, they're aluminum. They used to use zinc, and
Is
aluminum,
is
you get-
aluminum the material that's the bulkhead?
The bulkhead is steel, coated steel.
Okay, I thought you were supposed to use,
And so aluminum's a little softer.
yeah. Aluminum goes
The
quicker.
cathodic protection sub explained to me exactly why they use aluminum now instead of zinc, and I forget.
Okay, okay.
But they are aluminum anodes, and that's to scale there. They're pretty good size. They're like 3 feet long, you know, say 6-inch square kind of thing, right? So
Sure.
it takes some time for them.
So really, 15 years without changing them? Is somebody gonna like actually look at them
You would inspect those in the same frequency you'd inspect the bulkhead itself.
like
which,
yearly?
We inspected the bulkhead in 2018. Collins just inspected it again last year, so it's not like a 5-year cycle.
Okay.
That's not part of the contract, though, is it?
Not the inspection, no. Yeah, the town's pretty proactive about soliciting that regularly, but yeah, it's not
Great.
part of this work.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next is number 2, Anthony Pelletier. That went before Conservation July 9th.
It actually was continued to the 23rd and did end up getting approved.
And where's Nelbert Terrace?
It's so if you're between Highline and Veterans Beach, there's that neighborhood in between.
Daisy
And
Bluff or something?
So like there's, what is it? Bayshore Road is where the boat ramp is, and if you follow that, before you get to like Fish Hills, there's a left, and then on the right-hand side is Nelworth Terrace.
Great, thank
So
you.
it kind of overlooks like into Lewis Bay and part of the channel. It's a pretty volatile area, definitely needed to get fixed up. There wasn't a lot of shellfish there, outside of wanting to be a part of the pre-construction meeting, just to determine like, you know, any work that would be done by barge.
Anyway, it says aluminum.
Natural Resources didn't have any issues with it.
Excuse me, gentlemen.
No, just looking, aluminum versus zinc, excuse me.
Thank you, Amy.
Yep.
There are no special presentations. Status of, in old business, status of Scudder Lane.
It's there.
Good, thank you.
Yep, it's still there. Somehow
I'll
we
entertain-
still use it, even though people consistently drive off of like the right side of the ramp. And I think have left some skid plates behind. Yeah.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
No, I'll entertain one.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second it.
Great. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.